Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Scoliosis Dialogues. This is an SRS podcast. My name is Jaysson Brooks. I am a pediatric orthopedic surgeon at the Scottish Rite Hospital for Children in Dallas, Texas, and I'm also very honored to serve as the chair of the newly formed podcast committee. This is a very special episode because here we are talking about our upcoming annual meeting, and we have some really special guests here to help us talk about it. I would love to introduce my co-host here, Dr. Agarwal.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for having us with you here, Dr. Brooks. I'm one of the attending neurosurgeons at WashU in St. Louis, and I'm excited for this upcoming meeting, especially because we have the opportunity to travel to Europe.
Absolutely. I've already been practicing my words, and I'm sure that I'm not going to do very well with this new language. But more importantly, we have the mastermind behind this program, Dr. Shay Bess, and we would love for you to come in and introduce yourself and tell our listeners where you are, what you do for the SRS, and kind of why you're truly one of the linchpins for this meeting.
Thanks, Jaysson. Thanks, Nitin. Really pleasure to be here today. So I'm a spine surgeon here in Denver, Colorado. I'm also the 2022 annual meeting scientific program chair. And so Justin Smith and I made the half-day course and then decided on aspects of the educational format, and then also made the scientific program. So reviewed all the abstracts submitted this year with all the section leaders, and then chose the format, and then also chose what we thought were the best abstracts, which will appear on the HIB section on Friday. So a ton to go through. It has been just a gob of work. However, I think the program that we have this year is going to be absolutely phenomenal.
So if people want to figure out why their abstract wasn't accepted, then they can come directly to you. Is that right?
That's exactly right. And we can go through all the ways. You know, it's interesting, Jaysson. That's a really good point, though. You know, so let me pull up some numbers. I'm going to pull this up in the background, right? So we had, where is it? We had 1,086 abstracts submitted in consideration, of which 155 abstracts were selected for a podium presentation. So that's about 14%. Extremely competitive. Another 12 abstracts were accepted for a case discussion, 10 for the half-day course, and then we had 46 abstracts for a poster presentation. So extraordinarily competitive this year. And I think the SRS typically is. And if you look at the how we went through the abstracts, I can tell you every single abstract was read. The format that we go through it is there is an initial overview with an Olympic scoring system by minimum 5 graders for the abstract review committee. And then from that review committee, as well as the program committee, we chose section leaders based upon the topics for which you submit to the SRS: adult spinal deformity, adolescent idiopathic scoliosis, neuromuscular, quality, safety, value, complications, et cetera, basic science. And then we had minimum 2 Zoom calls with all of the section leaders voting on each of the abstracts, and then chose the abstracts accordingly, to some degree based upon the proportion of abstracts that were submitted, but then also really shot for high quality abstracts. And so wanted to make sure that the writer and the authors were clear about their hypothesis. It was truly hypothesis-driven research, that they were very rigorous in terms of their methodology and their statistics, and that their conclusions made sense. We also made a lot of changes this year to the abstract, at least submission and presentation process. Namely, we gave people more space to explain themselves, and gave them increased character count to 2,500. We also eliminated redundant sections so they could really dive in on the methodology, so it wasn't short shrifted. We also expanded the HIB session for the best abstracts to 6-minute presentations, up from 4-minute presentations. Those HIBS abstracts were selected by all of the committee members and all the committee leaders. And we went through 3 rounds of voting and selection for that to avoid bias, as well as give everybody a fair shake. So if you look at then at the HIBS abstracts, I've got it written down here, right? So that's about 0.9% of all abstracts were actually nominated for HIBS. So congratulations ahead of time to the authors that got a HIBS nomination. I think whoever wins the award is probably superfluous given how competitive it was.
Well, I do not envy your job at all. That certainly sounds extremely thorough. And thank you for what you do. For all those who are listening, we first off want to remind you that the SRS does have an app. And so you all can go on to the app store of your choice, either the Android or the Apple app stores, and download the Scoliosis Research Society annual meeting app. And there you'll be able to find the agenda, as well as many other cool kind of sub items that will allow you to make this meeting in Sweden as great as possible. But this podcast episode is about the annual meeting, and we wanted to kind of talk about some really interesting things that are going to be going on. So first, on Tuesday, as you all arrive on September 13th, we're going to really open up with, of course, there'll be the committee meetings. We really want to encourage all of you all who are on committees to make it there. But I'm really excited about the HIP Society meeting. We have an amazing speaker. That speaker's name is Tobias Dexel. And Nitin, I don't know if you will be able to just tell us a little bit about Tobias and kind of what makes him such a cool and kind of non spine surgeon type of speaker for us all to really learn from.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time I had heard of him, obviously, because he's not a surgeon. But it was interesting to see that he founded his own company, and he worked as a curator at the Nobel Prize Museum in Stockholm. So this is an extraordinary individual, extraordinary gentleman, and I'm really excited to hear from him on Wednesday for his lecture.
Yeah, be aware that Jaysson, that he's the Howard Seal lecturer, and so that will be on Wednesday. And the HIB session is a tremendous session with, I think, very, very strong didactics that will occur that day. And so a lot of things going on Tuesday. We're going to have everybody wrung out and beat down during their committee meetings, really planning for the next year. As you know, and we're literally going to hit the podcast committee too.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Your correction. The HIP Society meeting is on Tuesday, but it's separate, and I misspoke on that. Yes. So Tuesday, great lectures for HIBs. We're going to really encourage you all to make it there for that for sure.
But that's why you need the app, which I'm downloading right now.
Absolutely.
I love
the Howard Still lecture, we just talked about who's going to be our keynote speaker for that. But really importantly, on Wednesday, we're going to have a pre-meeting course, and we would love to hear from you, Shay, just about kind of the work that went into deciding what the topic of the pre-meeting course was, going to be. And then why you chose what you chose, and kind of why you think that our listeners should definitely make it to Sweden to be there in person for that pre-meeting course.
Yeah, thanks, Jaysson. I appreciate that. That if you look at the topic of it, Justin Smith, I should say, and I deliberated kind of what did we want to talk about, what was going to be representative for Chris Schaffery's presidency, and the big piece that we wanted to focus on is research, right? If you look at the middle name for the SRS, clearly, right, it's the Scoliosis Research Society. But I think I know what we wanted to do for this was define what that R for research is in our SRS and highlight the evolution of research that has been presented at the SRS and how the SRS evolved from that. So what we've done is we've broken it down into 3 parts. There's going to be early efforts from key centers and individuals. There's going to be understanding different deformity types. There's going to be expanding beyond individual centers to multi-center collaborations. And I'm sorry, there's a 4th part, namely how the SRS evolves. And so if we look at it, then clearly the first part for part 1, early efforts, right? That's going to be Minneapolis and the Mo legacy. How did the SRS evolve from that? And Joe Parra is giving that. Then going into talks about Mark Asher, Paul Harrington, and then CD instrumentation, and Debusset's grandson is going to be there, and then the influence that Professor Sook had for thoracic pedicle screw instrumentation, and then Alf Nachemson's legacy. And then we get into different deformity types, including early onset and AIS and adult spinal deformity and cervical, and then why those are different and how those different pathologies has shaped not only how we do research, but then also the quality of the research that is presented then at the SRS. We'll then look at then how technology has allowed us to expand beyond single individuals and single centers to multi-center collaborations, which I think has been instrumental in us moving the needle forward in terms of how we can evaluate patients and high volume patients and have these diverse ideas that you probably just wouldn't get from one center and just one person through these multi-center collaborations. And finally, we'll end it in terms of, okay, how then are we evolving in the SRS, right? So this speaks clearly to Nitin, right? Chris Shaffey is going to be talking about why and the importance of neurosurgery involved in it, because clearly we are one spine community. Laura Blake will talk about diversity and equality. Chris Ames will talk about the data aspects and how that's evolved things. And I'll talk about a new app actually that we're creating for the SRS. And then Marinus de Kluver will close us out looking at the SRS questionnaire. So there's a whole bunch of information and new topics, namely honoring the old, but also looking how we ring in the new for the SRS at the pre-meeting course.
I must say I'm most excited about part 3 of that pre-meeting course, where like I really think for the first time, we're going to have kind of thought leaders from HARM study group, the pediatric spine study group, the international spine study group, the European spine study group, and the American spine registry kind of all there. And I think me and Nitin, we're kind of young enough that we came up in the age where these groups were already there. And we were able to benefit from kind of all the information that came out of there. And so it's going to be really cool to kind of have them all on the same stage, kind of showing all that they have contributed to the field of spine deformity and continue to contribute.
Jason, I totally agree. That's the fun part of it is all of us now just kind of share things, I think, together in terms of where we come from, where we're going, but then also inspire others that are in the audience. Good gosh, and we made this model to some degree, but build it yourself for your own interests and continue then this effort as you then become the next leaders. So that's very much the thrust of the pre-meeting course.
100%. So Nitin, is there a part of the meeting that you're most excited about that you want to tell listeners?
Having just started, I think that I already recognize how much the SRS is doing for young people. And I was delighted to see that there's an early career surgeon session on Thursday, September 15th in the evening. And the emphasis on young people, there's the North American Scholarship for Residents and Fellows, but now having a part of the program dedicated to young people and to have masters of the field mentor us is quite exciting. So, I want to thank the program committee for putting that together. What are you hoping that leads to Dr. Bess? What are you hoping that the young surgeons get out of that?
Oh gosh, and I think that the big piece is feeling inclusive. We batted around the idea actually of on Saturday, because Saturday is typically so poorly attended, that we would have a young surgeon an investigator presentation day. And so we will likely evolve toward that in future meetings where that Saturday then is really a podium for evolving and up-and-coming researchers and surgeons. And so I think that this forms a nice transition, I think, to be inclusive in that as we foster the membership that is coming through, because those are our future leaders, right? And so want to do everything we possibly can to then not only be inclusive, but then provide a platform for which they can highlight what their efforts and desires are. And so I think that this adds or acts as a nice stopgap as we move toward that piece to truly highlight and foster our up and coming researchers.
Well, I was grateful to see that there was a complimentary registration for that session, but more importantly, right after, there's a social with beverages. So that is a meeting highlight for me.
100%. I actually went to the early career session in St. Louis last year. And again, it was, the SRS sometimes feels so big, and it was really nice to be around people that were kind of all at the similar stage in their careers. And it didn't matter whether you were neurosurgery or orthopedics, you did adult or peds. We all kind of had the same, battle stories. We all kind of had that slight tinge of lack of self-confidence and, wanting a validation in terms of kind of what we were doing. And so it was really nice to find that, solidarity.
That's cool.
And it's a really cool program that's being led there.
Jaysson, I agree with you. I think, again, the piece of solidarity, because it is one society, and how do we unite and advocate for each other? I think that's a big piece. One of the things that I ask the people, the attendees at the meeting, look for common themes. So what we've done for each of the sessions, right? There's, again, adolescent idiopathic and adult and quality safety value complications and early onset. We very much tried to generate a theme, and so they weren't these haphazard presentations of disjointed abstracts with topics that didn't really speak to one another. What we wanted to is pick the best quality, and then from that quality, provide then a common theme by which those abstracts fell under from a conceptual umbrella standpoint, so that the moderators, but people in the audience, were able then to either ask questions based upon a theme that hopefully sparked ideas in them, or even in some of the stories or some of the abstracts, compare and contrast, because there are going to be some very similar abstracts, albeit very high quality, pitted one against another. And so I hope that the audience will challenge then the presenters, because again, this is a congenial platform. We're all trying to inspire each other and trying again to improve care as well as research for which we provide for our patients and our society.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Bess, I know this has been a monumental task that you and Justin Smith have undertaken. We appreciate all that you are doing. We want to remind our listeners again that there is an app. Please go onto the App Store and download it. And you will be able to kind of get a little preview of how amazing our annual meeting will be. And we look forward to seeing everyone in Stockholm, Sweden, come this September.
Thanks, Jaysson. I want to especially say thank you and congratulations to all the reviewers, and especially the topic leaders. They work so hard to create this program. This program isn't just Justin and I's, it's the entire committee. The committee did an amazing job. And Sineas Alvarado, who's since left, was a pleasure to work with. But this is really our program. So it's a pleasure that we all get to share it together.
Excellent. All right. You all have a wonderful evening, and we will see you in Stockholm.
Thanks, Jaysson. Thanks, Nitin. Great job.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
The Scoliosis Research Society is a nonprofit professional organization made up of physicians and allied health personnel. Their primary focus is on providing continuing medical education for healthcare professionals and on funding and supporting research in spinal deformities. Please visit srs.org for further information.